when she gets to drinking, she takes hammers or either shoe, just about anything she could get a hand on and hit me with it.
Where would she hit you?
My head, my back, my neck, my shoulder. He took me with that wire and he hit me for nothing. And then
what kind of wire was that?
Like, you know the telephone? The wires from the telephone, like those? Or like that.
What did he do with it?
He started hitting me with, he left me marks, man.
Where did he make marks?
In my arms.
One night, me and my two sisters, we went upstairs, went to bed, right? My mother, she fed us and we went to bed. So we were sleeping, and I just heard this boom. She pushed the door open, and we sleeping. She said, get up, get up. And I got her, and her boyfriend was standing there. She said, take off all your clothes. I took off all my clothes. She woke up my sister to tell them to take all their clothes off. Then he had a mop. They beat us with the mop. She threw us all over the walls and stuff. She choked at me. She's called me all kinds of names and things. My sister was crying, and then after that, she kept choking me, saying I wasn't no good, and everything, said I'm gonna wind up like my other sister and everything. And then her boyfriend, he came in there, he started beating all three of us, throwing us all over the room in the bed. My mother was saying, kill him like that.
These young girls have all been abused by their parents. There are only 3 of the more than 22,000 children who were battered in New York City last year. Yet they're 3 of the lucky ones. More than 200 other children were much less fortunate. They were beaten to death, burned to death, branded with hot irons, thrown into courtyards, starved to death. Every week in this city, at least one child dies from battering. Child abuse has become the leading cause of infant death in the United States.
Chair.
Dr. John Devlin is Deputy Chief Medical Examiner for New York City.
Now, a battered child, you have to understand, is a child who is consistently, repeatedly tortured over a long period of time until such time as he dies. When I say tortured, I mean it in the absolute sense. The child is burned, bitten, beaten, whipped. We have cases where children are punished by lighting the stove and their hands are stuck in the fire. When they can no longer do that because the hands become burnt nubbins, they use their feet. When their feet are nubbins, they then resort to plunging them in boiling water. Children are thrown against objects, they're swung and hit against objects, they're thrown against the ceiling, they're jumped on, they're kicked, they're punched, they're bitten. Cigarette bites, old burns, fresh burns, and one of the characteristics, of course, of the battered child is numerous old injuries. Multiple fractures of bones which were untreated and are poorly healed. Numerous old scars. Now, these children are helpless. A 2-year-old child can't decide to pack a bag and leave home. He is strapped to his environment exactly as though he were chained to the walls of a medieval dungeon. There is no escape. There is no hope.
The temporary shelter for abusing mothers at New York's Foundling Hospital has been set up to try and help abusing women stop battering their children. The shelter program is run by Dr. Vincent Fontana.
We found that many of these parents themselves had been beaten or possibly psychologically abused, neglected, and physically abused. And what happens is that they do it to their own children simply because it's been programmed. This is something that they have learned as youngsters, as early childhood. We've come to understand perhaps that mothering isn't really an instinct. It's something that you learn and something to model and imitate because you see your mother or your grandmother or your aunt raising children and siblings. And so when you have your child, it's been actually programmed into you. These parents we're talking about had nothing like this to model themselves on. All they saw was violence, intrafamilial violence, violence upon themselves. And so when they become adults, their only way of acting out during times of crisis is usually one of violence, and it's usually the child who happens to be there that suffers.
The abusing mothers live in the shelter for 3 months with their children. They receive intensive individual and group therapy and are taught how to cook for, feed, play with, and care for their children. All the mothers were abused children themselves. This young woman was abandoned by her mother when she was 3 and placed in a series of foster homes. Later she married, but was then divorced and was left alone to care for her young son.
I was just getting very aggravated with the baby. He wouldn't listen to me. And I used to get frustrated because I didn't know how to cope with him. I tried different punishments, but nothing seemed to work. Later I resorted to hitting him because nothing seemed to work, and I was just getting so frustrated and aggravated because everything was being destroyed that I worked so hard to get.
What would you hit him with?
At first I was hitting him with my hand, and I hit him with a paddle. That was before I came in here. And he had a few marks on his legs and a mark on his face. But not from the paddle, that was from my hand in the ring.
But you got angry at him.
Oh, yes.
Could you describe that feeling? What is it like? I don't
Like a volcano.
Excuse me?
Like a volcano erupting. And that's exactly it. I would keep, telling him, don't touch this, don't touch that. And he'd keep it up, until I'd really explode. It was every day I got up and I saw something else. And all I was doing was cleaning all day. It takes 5 minutes to destroy, and all I would do is clean. I didn't have time with him because he was just messing up too many things. And it would take me so long to get all these things done. And then by the time I'm cleaning one thing up, he's into something else. And it was just too much for me. I couldn't handle it.
And then what did you do?
I'd make him stay in his room. And I'd close the door until I got what I had done, until the mess was, finished. But then I'd go into the bedroom and something else would be done in there.
Would you hit him then?
Yes, I would.
For the most part, we talk about these parents, they're not all crazy. And this is one of the fallacies that we say, well, they're all crazy. To do anything like this, you have to be mad. Well, the facts are that only 10% of them are schizophrenic or psychiatrically unfit.
Then why do they do it?
For the most part, the 90% we're talking about, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference if you were at a PTA meeting, a cocktail party, or walking down the street until that parent gets behind closed doors, the frustrations, the stresses and strains, and then because they have a potential, perhaps, they go beyond that thin line and they strike out at the child.
I just felt that, everything was crumbling. I didn't know what to do with him. Every time I yelled at him, I felt guilty, or if I had to hit him, I felt guilty, or even to punish him, because I just didn't know what to do anymore. I just gave up then. I finally gave up.
They're isolated people, they're lonely people, they have no friends, and when they strike out because there's no one there to help them.
It's just that I have nothing. I have no life. I have nothing to look forward to. Nobody at home, it's just me and the baby. Half the times I used to sit down and cry. And he'd say, don't cry, Mommy, everything will be all right. But that was it, and it would just start all over again. Start with something else.
Do you ever still get angry at your son?
Yes.
How do you feel when you get angry at him?
That I want to punch him. Or that I want to hit him when he doesn't listen.
This 15-year-old mother is suspected of battering her infant son. She can remember the treatment she received from her foster mother.
She used to pinch me, clobber her nails in me, smack me, punish me, send me to bed without no food, or kneel me down in the closet without no food or nothing.
She used to put you in the closet? What happened?
She used to have me there about an hour, maybe all night. If I used to say a lie or anything, she used to take a jar of salt, just empty it all in my mouth, make me swallow. I used to go to sleep crying all the time also. Praying to God that my father would come around and I would tell him so he could take me out. But that day never used to come.
At the shelter, group mothers like Sister Marie Therese try and show the abusing women how to give their children affection and love.
And sometimes I'll be very demonstrative, and love those little ones and hope that the mother sees that and is not afraid to give that same kind of love to her little ones. Sometimes they're afraid to do that, afraid to give, And even in loving her child, she could be afraid that that child would not return that love because she probably loved her parents somewhere along the line and there wasn't any love in return. So she in turn is afraid to love her child for fear she won't get that love back. So when I give the child this love, I love little ones. That's basic. But I'm hopeful that the mother will understand that contact, that physical bodily contact is very important to that little, and I'm just hopeful that she sees that. Do you love to be loved, Jose? Huh? Oh, yeah. Let's see the slide.
Unfortunately, the shelter program is limited. Only 8 mothers and their children can receive treatment at any one time. So far, 60 families have been helped. For all the mothers, though, this is their last chance to keep their children. The progress of each of them is evaluated, and a decision is made as to whether or not she'll be able to retain custody of her child. Mildred, who is 18, is the mother of 2 children. Her little girl had a 2-inch sewing needle stuck in her stomach. The boy was beaten by her boyfriend while Mildred stood by. She has also beaten the children herself.
We are trying to help parents who have trouble either caring for their children properly or with their tempers and hurting children. How can we help you?
Well, I discipline Jose. I hit Jose. I spank him if I have to. When he gets on my nerves, I smack because he does get on my nerves.
How do you smack him?
I smack him in his face and his hands.
What do you smack him with?
My hand. And, I tell him, don't do that. I tell him, don't do that, don't do that. And I'd rather yell to him. When he gets on my nerves, I hit him.
That strikes me as being a little harsh. Do you think I'm wrong?
Well, yeah, he's a little bit strong. I know that. But, I don't have no temper to take his things. He's too much. He is.
Well, do you think if you maybe talk to him?
I do talk to him, and it goes in one ear and it comes out through the other. There's no use talking to him.
Do you think it would be better if you didn't speak harshly to him and if you didn't hit him?
That's where he really overdo it. That's when he really do it for good. And when I'm in a good mood, I like to play with him and everything, but and he gets me mad. He gets me mad. I won't take nothing from him. And I hit him. And I told him, you don't do that. And he came back and he had marks on his behind of the belt. And they told me what happened to him. I told him I hit him.
2-year-old kids are very, they're aggressive and fresh sometimes.
But that's what you got to teach them. They're ready for 2 to 3 or 4. That's what you got to be teaching your kids. Because if that's when that time comes up, and that's when the time you leave them do what they want, think when they grow older.
Well, some people manage to do it without having to.
Some people, when the people got, they control themselves.
Well, I think all of us are concerned because hitting can go a little further and a little further, and then all of a sudden it's gone too far.
I find myself I'm mean once in a while.
You have too much of a temper for a person your age?
Yeah. I'm too much, I tell you.
Yeah.
And then when I get mad and I can't take it out on nobody, I start breaking things. I'm like this. At home, I used to do it in my house when I was with my father, and he used to let me go out nowhere and leave me in the house. And then hit me. I used to go to my room, I used to turn it upside down, break everything I had in my room.
How old were you then?
I was around 13 to 15. I've been like this since I was small. When I get mad at somebody, I go in my room and close that door and I start thinking and thinking. And I'm so mad, I'm mad at myself that I start crying because I can't take it out on nobody. I'm like this, I start crying. At home, when I used to be small, I used to take myself, beat myself up, punch myself, jump on the floor, hit myself across the floor, and start pulling on my hair.
You serious?
Yes, I'm serious. And you go ask my father. My father used to hit me because of that. When I used to get mad, I used to pull on my hair and start taking on my hair. I used to steal on my hair in my hand, punching on myself, hitting my across the forehead. My father used to scratch on my face. I used to scratch on my face, grab my face like this and scratch it. My father tells me.
Why would you get mad?
My father used to hit me and do something. Like my sisters used to take something away from me that was mine. You know, that I got it for me. And they used to take it and break my things. And I told my father, she did this, she did that. And my father said, that's not, she's your sister. I used to get mad because they used to let me beat her up.
Your father was very rough and very tough and nasty to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're not treating your children that
The
way.
same way, no.
But,
I find myself at 8.
But
That's why.
I feel that you are a bit harsh and tough with
Let me
your son.
Let me explain this to you. When my father used to treat me real bad, none of you were around, right? You think I'm treating my kid rough because you didn't see the way my father treated me. You see the way I'm treating my kids, right? So you think that's rough for you. But for me, that was there. I was the one who was being in it. I found myself, I'm treating my kids okay for the way my father treated my kids. You know what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
right?
so I think you're saying, and that sounds, I agree, that you've done better
Than my father
than your father did.
That's
Could
right.
you do even better?
I could do better.
How?
By doing it better, I could.
I don't mean being a perfect mother, but could you be easier and calmer and
Yes, I could, yeah.
gentle with it?
But it comes the time that my head blows over and I can't. You know.
Even as we were filming, the shelter staff was deciding that Mildred's children weren't safe with her. In order to protect their lives, they were taken away from their mother. Mildred is just 3 years older than this young girl. She's been beaten by her mother and has been taken to a New Jersey hospital.
I went to bed and she came upstairs, opened the door and said that I don't want to listen to her and don't want to bring no books home and I think I'm grown. And started beating me and I had said, Mommy, stop. And then she had grabbed me by my neck and I had her fingernail. She said if I break her fingernail, she's going to choke me.
Apparently, she had gone out to the movies with a girlfriend. Came home, went to sleep, was awakened by her mother who had been drinking, and was then in a rage over the fact that she'd gone to the movies, began to hit her with an electric cord.
And she had it
folded over.
Yeah.
That's a very typical way that abusive parents abuse their children. They take an ironing cord or an electric cord, and it's folded over, and it's used to beat the child with, usually across the arms or legs or buttock.
Like, when they peel the thing, that white thing off,
Yeah,
some of them little things were sticking out. I guess I got these.
you got the scratches from that. How long did she hit you for?
I don't know, she kept swinging and then I had felt my arm and I said, Mommy, stop.
So when you see mark like this, you have to be very suspicious. However, when she came into the hospital, she was filled with bruises and welts and marks, which have gone away essentially today. This is after about 2 or 3 days. You can see her also on her leg, some of the marks that are still prominent across here, which are caused by the long part of the electric cord. What happened after she stopped beating you?
She told me to go mop the kitchen floor.
To go mop the kitchen floor? Even though you had all the bruises on your arms and legs?
Uh-huh.
What did you do?
Took me mop the kitchen floor and then I went upstairs and started crying.
Did you mop the kitchen floor up?
Mm-hmm.
And did she say she was sorry afterwards?
She had went in the room and went to bed.
She went to bed. And then what did you do?
After I mopped the kitchen floor, I went upstairs and I was crying all night. I showed them to her.
Too often, the care and attention an abused child receives in a hospital lasts for just a day or two. Then, assuming no permanent damage, she may actually be returned to her home. Many family court judges feel a child is better off with a mother, even if she is an abusing parent, and they return battered children in an effort to keep the family together. If a child is taken from her home, she usually ends up in an institution, either a foster home or a city shelter. For a teenage girl for whom there are very few foster homes, the wait in a city shelter may take years. At the shelters, abused children are mixed in with severely retarded and brain-damaged children, and with those who are already criminals. Right now, there are more than 1,700 children in New York City shelters waiting for a foster home in which to live. In Canarsie, a mainly white, middle-class community, cases of child abuse have been increasing. There have been more than 100 of them so far this year, many for neglect as well as psychological and emotional abuse. This woman is the mother of 4 children and comes from a well-to-do Brooklyn family. But she became addicted to heroin and severely neglected her children. Now she's faced with the problem of caring for her 2 younger sons.
Well, as I said, I'm going to be 39, and from the time I was 17, I had my first son. I used drugs. I used drugs for 15 years. In between, I had children. I had my other son, and after the drugs, it was a methadone I was on for 7 years, and I really just came out of my shell about a year ago. And 20 years have really gone by that I didn't live, I just existed, because you can't call it living from one fix or one drink or one whatever. I didn't contribute anything to them. But you understand, I was too involved in myself and my own problems. They didn't have a mother. I was for me. Oh my God. They didn't have a mother. I was a junkie. And if you're a junkie, you can't, there's no love for anybody else in your life. It was a 24-hour, it was a 48-hour day.
How could you do this to your own 2 kids?
Not my own 2 kids. How could I do it to myself? I did it to myself. I waited 20 years for nothing. It's my life. I'm no good to me. I'm no good to nobody. Yeah, I feel for them. Sure I do. But I still come first. Now I want to try to help myself now. Then I want to help them. You know, everybody puts such an emphasis. You got children. Anybody can have children. Cats and dogs have litters. But what the hell good is it? Yeah, a big deal. Oh, you're lucky you got 4 children. Good, 4 children. Fine. Can I have a set of tea, too? I'm trying now to get my feet on the ground. As I said, I'm just opening my eyes. I'm aware of things now. It hurts. Believe me, it hurts me to say things that like, yeah, all right, later. Push them off. Fine. It hurts, eh? But when I'm saying, when I'm doing it, at the time, if my needs were greater, I fulfilled my needs. I couldn't think of them.
Herbert Schwartz is a social worker who's been trying to help this mother and her children. Are the children safe in that home?
Physically safe. Yes. I doubt if they will be murdered by her. And it sounds godlike, but it has not happened. She gets uptight, she gets angry, she gets frustrated, but she doesn't hit them. See, I think what will happen is that the kids will get hurt out in the street. These kids hang out in the street. They're out till all hours of the night. They are hustlers. It's the proverbial street urchins. That's what these kids are. That's where they'll get hurt, not in the home.
You're scared though, aren't you?
Sure. You bet I'm scared. I'm dealing with human lives. I'm scared. I can't mold these children into something just because I'm scared. Believe it. I wouldn't be asking for help.
What frightens you most?
What frightens me most? As far as taking care of the children, the little ones, that's just it. As far as taking care of them, that scares me. Can I do it? Can I accept it? Will I retreat? So many things. I can't go by what I did before. That was wrong. I can't use that because I'm not in that circle no more. So now I gotta go by the way I am now. Can I handle it now?
Can you?
I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know. I see myself get uptight last night, and I don't know. I want to. That's all I can say. I want to. But I don't know. And believe me, it's scary, because I'm not dealing with just an ashtray or a thing. I'm dealing with 2 lives. And I'm scared.
You know, in the entire interview with this woman, I don't think she was able really to take a look at what love is and know what it is. And the kids don't know what it is.
Do you have a feeling of love for these 2 young kids?
Yeah.
What is it? What's the feeling?
I feel sorrowful. I feel sorrowful. It's more pity than anything.
For me, I don't think a kid could go at all without love, without being hurt, terribly hurt, and almost permanently so. I don't think if the kid begins to receive love at a certain point in his life, he can begin to develop from that. I don't know where you can send a kid where he can get love like that. I don't know.
But I don't have that even maternal instinct. I don't. And I can't, and it comes out all the time. Because everything till he was born a dope addict. And it was my fault. And it's something that I couldn't live down. And he knows it. He knows it because they talk in his grandmother's house. He knows it. He was 7 weeks in the hospital. And I didn't want it to happen that way, but it did. You understand? And he was born with a habit.
There, but for the grace of God go I. I have 2 children of my own. And I thank God every day, you know, that my kids have a home and love and a family. And I wish it could be so for all of the kids. There was one day I came home and I said, damn it, let me take this kid home. But I can't do that. And there's too much. There's too many children.
I used to feel that she was the best mother a girl could have. But now, I think she's the worst mother a girl could have. I couldn't let out my tears. I used to, but I can't no more. She treat me like she don't know me. She never knew me. So sometimes I told her. So not too long ago, I just told her I felt like killing her.
How do you feel toward your own mother? How do you feel toward her?
Hate her.
I don't know. I can't stand him. That's the way I feel. I feel like I wish he was there.
What kind of mother do you think you'll be?
Better than the one I had.
That's the hope, that these young girls will someday become good mothers, that they'll treat their children with tenderness and with love. The frightening probability, though, is that they too will strike out, beating and battering their own children just as they were battered themselves. It's a terrible cycle. What's at stake are the lives of children.